Hello there. How are you doing today? Yeah, it's May 28th, 2020. And this is COVID-19 update by Heerak. It's a daily show to help you survive COVID-19. And today is Happy National Burger Day. So hopefully you had a Big Mac or a Whopper. Uh, there's nothing more American than a hamburger, right? But you're listening to a German song. Some of you may know it. It's pretty famous. And you'll see why I am playing a German song for you. I'm going to share some stories and photos of a friend of mine from Germany a little later. So stay tuned. And we have some very interesting developments. So stay tuned. Right now, um, President Trump is taking on social media. So, I mean, he's the president of the United States of America. Yeah, so he signs an executive order for First Amendment rights. And I fight for First Amendment, right? So I support his defense of the First Amendment. Yeah, I agree with President Trump. Social media tried to control what goes out there. That's just, it's wrong. There's censorship. And so I totally agree with President Trump and what he's doing. Yeah, you shouldn't be censoring anybody. Yeah, I love German songs. As you know, I'm a big fan of Germany. I spent a whole summer in Regensburg in Germany. I spent a summer in Freiburg, and I spent 6 months in Heidelberg, Germany. So I really like Germany. So so I'm glad that we got to share the German song together, and we'll see my photos of my German friend a little later. Yeah, so President Trump is taking on, social media because they're trying to censor him. Obviously, um, they're trying to censor President Trump, as President Trump correctly says, is a way to control elections, and also they're trying to control the president, with social media. That's pretty bad. It's like bypassing laws. And so President Trump is right to issue an executive order against social media to defend the First Amendment rights. I think that was a right decision he made. As this show, I practice First Amendment rights, and I'm a big fighter of First Amendment rights. And I believe that it is important for American citizens to be able to believe what they want, say what they want. And I think this is a sacred right. And I know a lot of liberal progressives are trying to destroy the rights of Americans to say what they want. Um, and it's a terrible thing. Um, yeah, so I support President Trump, issuing this executive order. Um, so we have a lot of interesting things happening during a COVID-19 era. Because during peace times, before COVID-19, President Trump did not issue an executive order against social media, although they were doing the same things. Um, and you know, on one level, you feel like life stops with COVID-19, but conflicts do not stop with COVID-19. Conflicts continue, and sometimes they're exacerbated under COVID-19. As we can see in Minnesota, the governor of Minnesota called a national guard because of the revolts there. Um, yeah, conflicts continue. African Americans continue to fight for their right to uh, fight against the implicit bias and discrimination in society against African Americans. I think that African Americans should focus on African Americans, people of color. Don't get involved with other extraneous issues because it weakens them. So I think it's important to fight for non-discrimination against people of color. Race issues, or ethnic issues. Don't get diverted into other things. I think that will help the African American community. As I'm an educator. I taught at Savoy Elementary School, and this is from Savoy. My fifth graders who graduated from Savoy Elementary School in 2018. So, uh, they created this shirt called We Out 2018. They're going to middle school. So my fifth graders, I'm very proud of them. Taught them for a whole year and just kind of shared in their joys and sorrows. I visited their families in their homes in Anacostia. Met their parents in their home, and they're really nice. I really like their parents. I tried to get involved with the community, and it's 100% African American school, Savoy Elementary School. And Anacostia is considered like the poorest neighborhood in Washington D.C. And I remember my kids were telling me that they're being kicked out of their apartments because there was gentrification going on, and so they're building new condominiums. So they were like kind of crying and saying that they're being kicked out. They have to move, which is kind of sad. This gentrification of African American neighborhoods in Washington D.C. It's a sad thing. Because in a sense you're kind of forcing African Americans out of their homes to make way for condominiums. And yeah, I mean it just doesn't seem fair. So I could see like the anger that African Americans can have in Washington D.C. and other places of America because they're being pushed out of their homes, to make way for millionaires or people who are going to buy, develop expensive condominiums, and they'll sell it for like 400, 500, $600,000 or maybe $1 million. And they have to leave their neighborhood to allow this to happen. So I understand the discontent that occurs in the inner city with a lot of African Americans. They on many levels they have a reason to be angry. Um, and because I taught in 100% African American elementary school, all the students were African American. I hear things from them, and I meet their parents in their neighborhoods, in their homes, and so I come to understand their struggles. Many of them are very good Christians, and all of them are definitely afraid that their children will become homosexuals. I mean, not too many parents want their kids to be homosexuals, if any. And so, yeah. But anyway, I talked to the parents, and a lot of them, they're in the cycle of poverty, right? Their parents were poor, they were poor, they're on welfare, a SNAP, and many of the parents have not finished high school, so some of them are finishing their GEDs now. So I talked to the parents about that, and they're great parents, but they get the short end of the stick. And one of the things I'm trying to do as a educator, trying to solve the problem of inner city public school education, is to break the cycle of poverty. And so I've shared with you, I'm working on a Doctor of Education dissertation right now, working on how principals can engage in clinical supervision uh, of teachers in African American public schools or inner city public schools where the, perhaps 100% of the students are African American or students of color, and try to improve student outcomes, the performance of students by improving the teachers and meeting their needs. As you know, I have a administrator's license in Washington, D.C., so I can be a principal or an assistant principal in any elementary school, middle school, high school in Washington, D.C., whether private or parochial or, charter, or, I can be a principal. And so, I'm looking at problem solving, not just as a teacher, because I taught fifth graders at Savoy Elementary School before entering Georgetown University for my master's program at the School of Nursing and Health Studies in clinical nurse leader, to be a clinical nurse leader. And so, I'm trying to solve a problem in America that affects all the African Americans. And the problem of inner city public schools, it's a problem of every state, of every city. And so, I'm trying to solve a problem that has not been solved in the last, 4 or 5 decades, and so it's not an easy feat, but, as you know, I'm the Leonardo da Vinci of 21st century. So if I can't do it, no one can. I presented my research at 2019 convocation of Kappa Delta Pi, which is International Honor Society of Education. That was held in 2019. It was in Norfolk, Virginia, and I presented on this topic and received a lot of praise for it. This year, 2020, convocation of Kappa Delta Pi is in Louisville, Kentucky. So, I'm planning to go to that if it doesn't get canceled because of COVID. Yeah, because, I'm the vice president of Kappa Delta Pi chapter, where I'm doing my Doctor of Education. I want to say shout out to President Chan. I'm the vice president. And Myra, she's like our Secretary General. And three of us, we generally kind of work to build the Kappa Delta Pi chapter, our college, American College of Education in Indiana, state of Indiana. We inducted, over 50 people to our Kappa Delta Pi chapter this year in the induction ceremony. So we're kind of proud of that. Yeah, so we're a good team. We do a lot of good. I'm focusing on my Doctor of Education dissertation research on how to improve inner city public schools through clinical supervision by principals of the teachers in the school. And that should be published as a book in year or two, and hopefully it will revitalize public school education in America, especially inner city public school education. So, I'm continuing to work on that. I've been working on the doctorate for last several years, and so a lot of people are very excited about it in the professional realm of education. Because it's going to revolutionize urban education. As you know, I'm the Leonardo da Vinci of 21st century, so I have many expertise, and I'm a leader in every area that I enter. So I'm an expert of Jewish studies, and I'm a leader in that field. I'm a leader in education, and I'm one of the top leaders in the country in education. Yeah, whichever field I enter, I become a major leader. As you know, I'm graduating with Master's of Science from School of Nursing at Georgetown University to be a clinical nurse leader. And we have a cohort of 25 people, so me plus 24. And we have a pinning ceremony tomorrow. So congratulations to my fellow cohort members. I love you guys. So we have a pinning ceremony tomorrow. Pin, 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 pin. Pinning ceremony. Yay, congratulations to us. So yeah, so we're very excited. We had a class, nursing ethics class today together, and I actually got to present. So I talked about capacity. You know, it was kind of like a oral presentation. I led the discussion, and it was like, for, you know, almost an hour. And basically, I discussed, the concept of informed consent, and we talked about that a couple episodes ago, and also. How do we determine whether somebody has capacity to make their own decisions for healthcare? And I know a lot of African Americans get mistreated in healthcare, and I talked about that yesterday. So see the video from yesterday if you haven't seen it, because they're African American. Sometimes implicit bias of white nurses play a role, and sometimes they kind of decide that they don't have the capacity to make their own decision. And that's just wrong. Just because you're an African American doesn't mean you don't have the right to make your own decisions for your own healthcare needs. And I support African American autonomy. I consider it one of the important duties of nurse, advocacy duties of nurse to ensure that African Americans have autonomy to decide their own fate. I mean, a bunch of white female nurses telling a bunch of African Americans what to do, that's just not right. You got to give them the right to decide for themselves what they want in life. And so I'm a big supporter of giving autonomy to African Americans to make their own decisions in healthcare. We don't need like female progressive liberal Democrat nurses to be slave owners of African Americans who enter hospital. I mean, there are white liberal female feminist nurses who think they're better than African Americans, and some of them like get a court order to confine African Americans who want to leave the hospital of their own decision. And I'm like, if they want to leave, and make sure you help them understand what's going on. But if they can show you that they understand the dangers and the benefits, but they still want to decide X, Y, and Z for themselves, then you got to respect their decision. They're not slaves, and I think that some white feminist female white nurses, they think like they know better than Black people. And, in a sense, it's a slave owner mentality, I would argue. They think they know better than African Americans. And it's a type of implicit bias, assuming that you know more than Black people, that you know what's best for Black people. It's a form of implicit bias that's just wrong. When I was teaching my students at Savoy Elementary School in an Anacostia neighborhood, I was always amazed at how smart they are. And, and I taught, in a school that's 99% African American in Petersburg, Virginia, 8th grade math. And they were all smart too. What I realized when I teach, 8th graders is, or 5th graders or other grades who are African Americans, is that they have the brain potential to be amazing. Like Dr. Carson, director of HUD, he's like a world-renowned surgeon. And now he's the director of HUD. They're amazing. Clarence Thomas is an amazing person. He's a Supreme Court justice. There are a lot of bright African Americans, Africans. In fact, the greatest theologian in the history of the world is an African. St. Augustine of Hippo, he was Black, African guy. So he's considered the #1 greatest theologian in the world. And Calvinism, John Calvin followed Augustinian theology, and there are still Augustinian monks in the Catholic tradition. Luther was a Augustinian monk as well. And so for people, especially white feminist nurses, to assume that Black people don't have the capacity to make decisions for their own lives, maybe because they don't understand African American culture, maybe because they think African Americans are inferior. This is what I'm saying when I say, white, liberal, feminist, liberal progressives are the greatest racists in the world. They think they know better than everyone, and it's just not right, the principle of autonomy, which is a value that's emphasized in, American Association for Nursing, which is the professional body for nursing, they value autonomy. And autonomy is defined as, not deciding things for other people, but giving self-efficacy to the patients. So patients can decide what they want for themselves. That's autonomy, right? The principles of autonomy is, giving power, empowering the patient. And so when I was teaching my African-American students, some of them were actually Africans, who just recently immigrated from Africa. I emphasize that value, autonomy. I want every one of my students to become leaders in whatever they do. So one of the things I emphasize is like stay away from pot, marijuana, because it will dull your brain. It will draw you into hardcore drugs that will destroy your life. So I emphasized every day, not to do drugs. And marijuana is legal in Washington, D.C. I don't care. I want my students to be great. So I don't want them to be doing dope, marijuana, and stuff like that. Yeah, so I train my students to become great leaders. I don't want them to be followers. I want them to be leaders. So any one of them could become a great theologian like Augustine of Hippo. They could become a great surgeon like Dr. Carson. They could become a great judge like Clarence Thomas. Any one of my students can become like this. And so it starts from respect. You need to respect the Black people, As you know, and I've shared in the show, I received my teacher's education at Virginia Union University, which was founded in 1863, and in Richmond, Virginia. And the teacher that I respected the most, Joe Simmons, he was the vice chancellor of Richmond Public Schools, and he's been a professor at Virginia Union University Department of Education for a long time. He's an older gentleman. He used to share stories about his days living in Richmond during segregation era. And, we learned a lot from him and his experiences. And one of the things that he emphasizes, autonomy, that African Americans are not respected in society, and, he knows that every African American in NAACP, in HBCU stands for historically Black colleges and universities, like, Virginia Union University in Richmond, Howard University in Washington, D.C. Every African American leader understands that there is this perception of African Americans as not being able to make their own decisions, and that exists among Democrats and white progressive feminist women, Blacks get discriminated against by white feminists, white progressives all the time, So, I'm not saying anything that African Americans haven't thought about or haven't discussed, and so, and in the area of nursing, sometimes you have these white progressive nurses, white feminist nurses who think like they know better than Black people, that they can make decisions for Black people. And this kind of like, if you want to say it in a nice way, it's like implicit bias, They don't know that they're being discriminatory toward African Americans. They think they're helping African Americans. And in history, we have a term, it's called benign paternalism. And it could be used in a positive or a negative way, but most historians use it in a negative way. And what that means is like, there are people, who think that they are better and they know better. And generally it refers to white progressives or white liberals, Champagne Democrats, who tries to decide things for Black people because they think they know best for Black people. They're like, we're liberals, we're progressives, and we know best for Black people, so we're gonna do things for Black people regardless of what they want. And that's just not respect, in my opinion. And so, and you have a lot of that in healthcare, white feminist nurses thinking they're better than black people, especially white feminist nurses who work in inner city like Washington, D.C., New York City, Chicago. They look down on the black people, a lot of them. And it's a big shame, because that just, it's an implicit bias. They don't know they're doing it. They think they're like helping black people, right? But, my argument is black people know what they want, you know? So you gotta let them make their decisions. Obviously, you gotta give them information and you gotta make sure they understand, but you gotta respect their decision. If they were white, you wouldn't be doing the same thing, It's just because they're black, they have a black skin color, and you look at them and they're black, that you automatically feel like, you know more than they do. And, you may know more than they do, obviously, if you're a nurse, but, you know more about healthcare than they do, but you have to respect the patient's decision to decide for himself or herself, whether they're white or black, And so I believe in patient autonomy. So when I think about patient advocacy that nurses should engage in, and it's one of the ethical values of nurses, according to ANA Book of Ethics, Code of Ethics, it is to empower the patient to make decisions for himself or herself. It's not to make decisions for them. And I really value this, and I think we need to start a movement in Washington, D.C. among white, liberal, progressive, feminist nurses to raise awareness that advocacy is not making decisions for black people in Washington, D.C. Advocacy is letting black people in Washington, D.C. make decisions for themselves about what they want. And that's advocacy, and so we gotta reframe and restructure the way white feminist nurses look at the African American population in Washington, D.C. And I'm in Washington, D.C. area, as you know, I'm at Georgetown. So I'm kind of talking about Washington, D.C., but that has to happen in New York City, Los Angeles, California, in San Francisco, in Chicago, in Atlanta. White feminist nurses must respect African Americans to make decisions for themselves. And I think this is a movement that we have to start. And, I think African American nurses should also kind of champion this, because there's a lot of implicit bias by white nurses who are feminist and Democrat, card-carrying, liberal, progressive, feminist white nurses who think they know better than black people. It's not right. As I said, I teach black students. 100% of my students are black in Savoy Elementary School, and my students are now in middle school in Anacostia. But yeah, so yeah, so that's one of the things that I value, and I intend to rise to the top of the nursing profession as well. So I shared with you before, one of my goals, after a couple of decades is to go, or maybe after a decade is to go to University of Pennsylvania, teach in the School of Nursing at University of Pennsylvania, and have a joint professorship in School of Education, because I'm finishing up my doctoral dissertation at American College of Education, Indiana, and have another joint professorship in Department of History, and also in Jewish Studies, and so yeah, so that's one of the things that I'm planning. Have like triple appointments. It's I'm the Leonardo da Vinci of 21st century, and I have an obligation. I feel to the humanity to give information and knowledge that they need. And right now I'm focusing on helping you survive COVID-19. And I have created this show. I'm running for US Congress for Virginia's 8th district because COVID-19 is not going away anywhere. And I'm predicting that it will kill about 30 million Americans in the next several years. If we don't have a vaccine or cure. Um, and so, I feel like I need to be a U.S. congressman to be able to help make decisions that will help everyone, and, so vote for me in Virginia's general elections on November 3rd, 2020. I've shared with you Virginia Governor Northam is playing like dirty politics with Tom Byer, whom I'm running against in Virginia's 8th District, Arlington, Alexandria, Falls Church, and Fairfax County. I decided to run as an independent in March. I ran as a Republican from November 2019 to February 2020. And then I started to run as an independent in March. And then Governor Northam issued a stay-at-home order on March 30th to last to June 10th, not allowing me to collect any signatures. And I have to, according to Virginia state law, I have to submit 1,000 signatures to Virginia Board of Elections by June 9th. But Governor Northam issued a stay-at-home order from March 30th to June 10th, making it impossible for me to collect signatures. So in America, every state, all 50 states, have their own Board of Elections. Their own state has it, and they are governed by the state law. So I'm an official candidate for U.S. Congress with the Federal Election Commission, FEC, and I am registered also with the United States House of Representatives, Office of the Clerk. So Nancy Pelosi knows I'm an official candidate for U.S. Congress in Virginia's 8th District as an independent candidate. But I am in Virginia, and Virginia's 8th District is in Virginia. So in terms of election in Virginia, it's governed by Virginia state law. And this Virginia state law requires that I submit 1,000 signatures as an independent candidate by June 9th. And Governor Northam is playing dirty with Don Byer and trying to push me out of the ballot box, although I'm an official candidate for U.S. Congress, and it's just really dirty. So I'm asking my viewers, you out there, to write to Governor Northam, write to Don Byer saying, waive the 1,000 signatures. I wrote to Virginia Board of Elections, and Chief Piper commissioner, basically the head guy in Virginia Board of Elections, said he doesn't have the legal authority to waive my 1,000 signature requirement because he's not a governor. So I wrote to Governor Northam to waive this 1,000 signature requirement. He hasn't written back, and it's been like a couple of weeks. So he's playing dirty politics. So I'd really appreciate it if you could write to Governor Northam, call him up and say, give Heerak the waiver for 1,000 signatures so he could be on the ballot. He's an official candidate for U.S. Congress with the Federal Election Commission and with the U.S. House of Representatives registered. So I really appreciate that. Yesterday, in the last 24 hours, we had over 1,000 deaths. So it seems like this is a new reality, having more than 1,000 people die every day. So 1,177 died. So yesterday we had 100,396 deaths. Today we have 101,573 deaths. I'm predicting that there will be 1 million Americans dead by August 1st. I don't want that to happen, but I'm predicting that it will happen because 50 states are opening up. So it's not like COVID-19 has changed. It's the same COVID-19 or maybe more violent as the one in March. But from March to now, we've been like locking inside. So it wasn't spreading that much. Still, we had like over 4,000 people per day die during April. But now that all 50 states are open up, I'm predicting that soon we'll have like 10,000 people die per day. And that's why I'm predicting that we'll have 1 million deaths by August. Hopefully I'll be wrong, but I don't think we will be. But yeah. So let's look at the death figures. Just to give you a perspective, as you know, one of my theories is that COVID-19 is a biological weapon that the communist Red Army created in order to destroy America and for China to become number one. So it's a genetically modified virus using the latest scientific technology. I think I'm right. I'm just look at the figures in your screen. How come so many deaths in U.S. and how come so little death in Asia? Because, as I said in my theory, it's a genetically modified biological weapon, and that's why it's killing a lot of Americans. Because when Chinese created this biological weapon, they altered the genetic sequence of the virus to target the dominant, you know, vulnerabilities, genetic vulnerabilities that Americans have, which is not the same as genetic vulnerabilities that Asians have. And that's why you have such discrepancy in the death figures. India is number one right now with 165,386 cases. But look at the number of deaths that they have, 4,711. That's it. I mean, it's a country of 1 billion people. They should have more infections than we do. They don't even have that many infections. And, don't tell me India is, social distancing better than us. They don't even have medication in many of the villages, right? So how come not too many people are getting infected in India? And how come not too many people are dying? They don't even have medication. That's why I'm saying it is a biological weapon that China created specifically to target the U.S. U.S. population's genetic makeup. China is number two at 84,106 cases. Their death is 4,638. Pakistan has 61,227 cases, and their death is at 1,260. And Bangladesh has 40,321 cases and 559 deaths. Singapore, look at this. They have 33,249 cases and 23 deaths. And as you know, Singapore, the predominant population is Chinese, ethnic Chinese. They're 100% Chinese ethnically. And I think, this explains why my theory is correct. Yeah. So let's go to what you've been waiting for. It's we have pinning ceremony tomorrow. So for me, it's kind of like a celebration week. Pinning ceremony is a big deal for clinical nurse leaders. So all of us are excited, all 25 of us. And congratulations to CNL 2020, CNL 2020, CNL 2020. We have a pinning ceremony tomorrow. Pin, 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 pin. So everybody's very excited. Unfortunately, generally pinning ceremonies on campus, and mom and dad and friends and loved ones, husbands, for those who have, like Betsy has a husband and children, they would have come to the pinning ceremony. If there were a pinning ceremony and there weren't any COVID-19, right? I mean, and it would have been such a great event. We would have probably had big banquets and parties, and it would have been so fun. Parents flying to come to the pinning ceremony from all over the country. And maybe Yingfu McMillan might have had her family come from China and her younger brother. And it's so sad because none of them are coming. They may be watching via Zoom tomorrow on Friday during the pinning ceremony, but they're not going to be physically celebrating. And it's such a different thing. Watching via Zoom isn't really celebration. Sorry to say, but I think all 24 CNL 2020 core members of mine probably will agree with me that watching a pinning ceremony via Zoom is not the same as being in a pinning ceremony, because you actually get to walk up when they call your name and they pin you, and your parents take photos, and you shake hands or hug your professors, and it's just a big celebration. It's a ceremony, right? And we have none of that. We have like a little Zoom screen that we're looking at, and the parents are looking at, and brothers and sisters are looking at. Betsy's husband and children will look at. Betsy is one of our CNL members who lives in Washington, D.C. area. Near, yeah, so near Montgomery County. And so, yeah, I mean, it's really sad, yeah. But yeah, I could have invited my friends from Europe as well, to come to my pinning ceremony. Yeah, so let me share with you a photo of a friend of mine. She's Nadine from Hamburg in Germany. Um, I met her when I was in Germany and I was walking around and I saw her and I was like, wow, she's really cute. So I started talking and, I got her number and email and then we start corresponding. And she graduated from high school, not gymnasium, I think it's Hochschule. And then she started selling flowers. So she didn't go to the university. In America, like 70% of Americans don't go to college. They start working after graduating from high school at 18. So, she started working, selling flowers at a flower shop at 18. So I met her like when she was 18. And we started, kind of chatting and we kind of got close. And I guess when she was 19 or 20, she flew out to California to visit me. I was in California. I remember the moment I walked to LAX airport with a sign, just to make her feel special, Nadine. Yeah, then I picked her up from the airport and she stayed with me, for weeks. Yeah, we had a great time. And one of the fun things that we did was go to Universal Studios in Los Angeles. Maybe I'll share other photos with you as well. So here's a photo of me with Nadine in Universal Studios. And so, it was fun, like, just kind of going around, being silly, taking silly photos. Oh man, I was like fat then too. I've never been thin in my life. No, actually, that's not true. When I was in Korea, I was thin, and yeah, if you see my kindergarten photo, I was thin. You may be able to see it, tomorrow. Yeah, I was thin in when I was in Korea, because basically everybody's thin in Korea, you know. But after I came to America, in fourth, fifth, I came in fourth grade and I entered fifth grade in America. Man, I was just gained weight and I've been fat ever since. So, but I don't know, I don't have incentive to lose weight. That's the problem. Is women like me, even though I'm fat. So I'm like, what's the point of losing weight? I mean, I like my women thin. I mean, you can see Nadine is very thin. Yeah, I like my women thin, but the thin and pretty women that I have interested in, like, they don't seem to have a problem with me being overweight. I told you about my first really serious girlfriend at age 17, Alice Sim, Shim Jiyogi, the daughter of like a Samsung CEO. She used to lay on my stomach, look up at me and say, "Oh, I love your stomach." I mean, how is that going to help me lose weight? When your girlfriend's like putting her head on your belly looks like a little mountain, and she looks at you and says, "I love your belly." She was, we were at Berkeley, University of California at Berkeley together. I was doing intensive lunch. I was a freshman at Penn, University of Pennsylvania, and it was a summer afterwards. And then she just graduated from international school in Korea, and she was headed to Smith College. And we hooked up in, University of California at Berkeley, and yeah, she would, put her head on my belly, look up at me, my face, and say, "I love your belly." And she would say, "Je t'aime, je t'aime." I didn't, at that time, I didn't really know French. I mean, I didn't know French. Actually, I did know French, but, I didn't know, I mean, everybody knows je t'aime, right? And voulez-vous, avec moi, avec moi ce soir. There are some phrases that just because it's culturally there. But yeah. Um, but so she would say je t'aime, and she couldn't say it in English because she was too. I guess she was too embarrassed to say it. She's like Korean. But yeah, so it's like I love you in French, and so yeah. But like every girlfriend I had, no one ever said I need to lose weight. They 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 seem to like me. It's like I'm like, okay, hey, so I never really had an incentive to like jog to lose weight or exercise, workout. Yeah, so yeah, yeah. What can I tell you? So yeah, Nadine flew all the way from Germany, and she works for at a flower shop, so she like accumulated a lot of vacation days, and she took off like 3 weeks or 4 weeks to fly over to visit me. I mean, the plane ticket must have cost a lot. And she works at a flower shop. I don't know how much they get paid in a working selling flowers in a flower shop, but it's probably like a minimum wage job, right? I mean, I didn't ask. So I don't know how long she had to save to get there. I mean, obviously she stayed with me, so she didn't have to pay for anything, in terms of, so, basically the plane ticket was the largest cost. But yeah. But anyway, so I guess she saved, and saved, and then she flew over to visit me, and it was really nice, seeing her, spending time with her, um, and so yeah, so we went to Universal Studio, Hollywood sign, and then and King Kong, who doesn't like King Kong, and the Shrek was there, so she took a photo with Shrek, and that's the Terminator scene. Yeah, Nadine's, she's really nice. You know, I have, you know, I have girlfriends. You know, I don't discriminate based on education. Like Nadine is an amazing woman. She's very bright and intelligent. Just because she didn't go to college doesn't make her any less of a woman or any less of a person. I respect her, and I value her judgment, and she's a great person. And I have girlfriends who have PhDs, are professors in colleges, universities, and I have girlfriends who never went to college. Like Nadine. I think she was like 19 then, but 19 or 20. But yeah, I mean, and she wasn't planning to go to college at all. She was like happy working in the flower shops, selling flower. More power to her, whatever makes her happy, right? Life isn't, I see all these graduate students in university who get masters, PhDs that are like fat and ugly. I'm not pointing to a specific one, but you gain weight as you get older, right? And like they hate life. They come to hate men, and they're bitter. I'm like, wouldn't it have been better had they not done the master and the PhD and found some guy to marry? They would have probably been much happier by the time they're like 35 than doing all these masters and PhD and becoming like bitter with life, cynical about life. They can't find joy in anything in life. I'm a happy person. As you see in my show, I just love life. I love humanity. I love everything I do, especially pinning ceremony. You know, I just love, life. I mean, life is so precious. It's a gift from God. So I treasure every day that I have, and I thank God for it. All the opportunities I get, I thank God. All the people that I meet. During COVID, I'm not meeting anybody because this is a killer virus. You talk to people, you're gonna get it, and you could die. Hey, don't talk to people. I mean, wear your mask, but it's not the time to make friends. And this is COVID-19 global pandemic that's killing over 1,000 people per day. I'm not today. I was kind of walking around the neighborhood, and I saw like some beautiful women, walking their dog, and I was like, man, if this weren't COVID-19, I'll probably start a conversation and ask them out on a date. But you know, because they're really brute. They're really pretty. But this is COVID-19, you know. I'm not gonna go up to them and start talking, you know. I mean, geez, you know, no, I mean, they may have COVID, they may be a carrier, um, you know, and they may not be, but you know, you start talking to people, you know, people are gonna get COVID, you know, and Virginia COVID cases are going up, hospitalizations are going up. I'm predicting that 300 people in Virginia's 8th District, Arlington, Alexandria, Falls Church, and Fairfax County will die per day in the summer. And how does that happen? You go up to beautiful women and start talking to them, or, you know, whoever you walk up and start talking to them, that's how that happens. So you got to do your part and not talk to people, you know? I mean, I wanted to talk to her, ask her on a date, you know? Who doesn't like dating a beautiful woman, you know? Yeah, but I'm not going to do it because it's COVID-19 pandemic. So, you know, she can happily walk her dog. More power to her. And I could see like she was stopping and looking at me, and you know, I think she was hoping that I would come over and talk to her. I don't know. Beautiful women seem to have this Heerak vibe. You know, it's like, Heerak, please come talk to me vibe. You know, I feel it everywhere when I mean, all my life. You know, I don't know. I mean, I may send off like this pheromone. You know, vibe. It's because when I was in Israel, you know, like Israeli women were sending the vibe. You know, they were looking at me and wanting me to come talk to them. I went and talked to them, and I dated some of them. You know, and I'll show some photos. You know, later sometime. And when I was in a Palestinian area, they were like Muslim women and were like kind of sending out pheromones. I talked to them, and you know, I was a little bit more careful because they have that honor killing system. I don't want to get killed by their brother or their father. I don't know if they killed a man. I think they may just kill the daughter, but I didn't want the girls to die, you know. So I kind of was very, very careful when I was in Palestinian areas because I didn't want any of the Palestinians, you know, to die. Like I think there was news in Pakistan, and some guy recorded himself kissing a girl who was like 17. Um, and that's all they did to like kiss. And then 1 year later, somehow that video got on the YouTube. I guess the guy uploaded it or something. And you know, it's a Pakistani Muslim society. It's not like, you know, European society where people date. You know, nobody really cares. But in Pakistan, you know, so her father and brother saw it and they killed her. Yeah, this was on the news like last week. So I knew like when I was in Israel that, you know, that certain traditional societies, Muslims traditional societies have honor killing. So yeah, there are beautiful Muslim women in like Hebron and Nablus and you know, Ramallah who may be interested in me and send out that, you know, signal. But I, you know, I'll be friendly and say hello and stuff. But you know, I wouldn't want them to get honor killed. You know, even if they think that kissing me is worth it, you know, I wouldn't want that for them. So I, you know, yeah, so I was kind of, you know, gotta be culturally sensitive. So with Israeli women, I had no problem, you know, because yeah, they have no honor killing system in Israel. So yeah, but in Palestine, you know, with the Muslim population that they do. So you have to be culturally sensitive. You know, you can't treat everybody the same, you know? Um, even if they want to be treated a certain way. I mean, unless you're going to marry them, you know that they could be honor killed in certain cultures. You have to be careful, you know, not to you know, because, you know, somebody may see, you know, and then relay the message. And, you know, I mean, there's no secrets in the world. So yeah, but anyway, yeah, Nadine's not Muslim. You know, she's like Christian from Germany in Hamburg. So, but anyway, yeah. So yeah, so Nadine, she's great. So yeah, she's nice. I have so many German friends. I should go over and visit them. You know, there's so many people I should visit. You know, because every country I go to, like, you know, people seem to like me, like the women seem to like me. So yeah, I make a lot of friends, you know. Yeah. But anyway, yeah. So yeah, Nadine's lovely, you know, she's nice, really nice. Yeah, nice person. But anyway, yeah. So yeah, I guess you know, they may be opening up Universal Studios. I mean, I wouldn't go there during COVID-19 just because, you know, over 1,000 people are dying every day, and they say cases in California are like skyrocketing now. So it's not time to go to Universal Studios or Disneyland. But yeah, I mean, I wouldn't go there. You know, you do what you want, but yeah, but it's nice to reminisce, you know, and you know, you could see these photos, hear my stories, you could like kind of vicariously live through me, my exciting life. But anyway, yeah, thanks for you know, checking in, seeing my show today, and you know, I hope you learned something today. And something that will help you survive COVID-19. And you know, like some of the stories that I tell you about my life, maybe you know, you want to take it to your heart and just be careful. You know, yeah, don't jeopardize your life. You know, just to meet someone. You know, this is not the time to do that. It's COVID-19 era, and it's a highly deadly infectious virus that kills. So you just have to be very, very careful. You know, right now I'm operating from policy. You know, don't talk to anybody, even when I have a mask on, because you know, homemade masks are only like 30, 40% effective. And if you start talking to somebody with a mask on, you're going to get it. So yeah, even when I go to Giant Food store in Falls Church, you know, they have the glass panes. I don't know if you go to Giant, they have glass panes. So whenever I talk to the cashier, I always stand behind the, you know, glass partition so that she has a mask on and I have a mask on, but there's a glass partition that'll block any kind of aerosol, you know, or any kind of a virus that is emitted while talking. You know, you have to be careful. You know, if you get COVID-19, just you can wear a mask. Somebody in the grocery store can wear a mask. You talk to each other, you can get it. So you just have to be very, very careful. Yeah. So anyway, so I hope I'm giving you some ideas that will help you survive COVID-19, you and your family and your children. So yeah. So I hope you enjoy this show. And yeah, check back tomorrow. It's a daily show. I share like fun stories. I share some fun photos. I discuss some issues that relates to COVID-19. I sometimes discuss Jewish history. I sometimes discuss, you know, education topics, nursing topics. You know, you're going to become erudite just watching this show. So obviously, you should watch this show. Yeah. So yeah. You know, I've applied for hospital, you know, to work as nurse. And if I end up working in Washington D.C., I may see like, you know, my students and their parents. You know, when I walk around in DC, you know how many times that people go, Mr. Kim, and I turn around, and it's like my students' parents. Because Anacostia is kind of near like the White House and Congress, you know, because it's like near the Nationals ballpark. Uh, and so it's like really close from downtown area. So, you know, you run into like you know, my student, I run into my students' parents all the time. And I'm famous. People know me in Anacostia, you know, because I'm Mr. Kim who teaches fifth graders, you know, and we've done a lot of things in the community, uh, kind of serving the community. So people in Anacostia know me, you know, Heerak, Mr. Kim. They know me as Mr. Kim. They don't know me as Heerak. Because I'm a fifth grade teacher, they just call me Mr. Kim. But yeah, but yeah, it's funny, you know, turn around, Mr. Kim, oh, hey. Yeah, so it's Washington, D.C. kind of like my home, you know, and, you know, I was walking, like I was walking at Howard University, one of the security guards, she turned out to be the grandmother of one of my students. Yeah, I went to Howard University because I did some uh, professional development training at Howard University for urban education. So I did that for 1 year from 2017 2018. And one of the security guards at Howard, you know, they have that special police uniform on. And I started talking to her, and she's like, yeah, you teach a Savoy. I have a granddaughter of Savoy. Who's your granddaughter? She's like, Kamari Daniels. Oh yeah, I know Kamari Daniels. She's one of my students. It was like Kamari Daniels' grandmother, security guard. I was like, wow, what a small world. I could be walking around anywhere in Washington, D.C. I could run into like special police, Capitol Police, I could run into all these people who are like parents. Because obviously, the parents of my students have to work somewhere. Their parents have to work somewhere, right? And so, like, man, small world, like whole city of Washington, D.C. is connected. Yeah, so yeah, I consider DC as my city. It's my city, especially Anacostia, Ward 8. That's like my ward. Yeah, people know me there. But anyway, yeah. So yeah, but anyway, I hope you'll check back tomorrow. Maybe I'll share photos of my students from Savoy Elementary School. Fifth graders who graduated in 2018. Fifth graders went to middle school in 2018. That's when I entered the Georgetown University School of Nursing for my master's program to become clinical nurse leader. It's a 2-year intensive program, and that's why I'm graduating in 2020. So I just want to say congratulations to my CNO people again. Pin, 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 pin. We have a pinning ceremony tomorrow. So congratulations to all of us. I love you guys. And also, I want to say congratulations to Bachelors of Science and Nursing students at Georgetown. There are 26 of them graduating tomorrow. They'll also be watching via Zoom. But yeah, so congratulations to everybody who's graduating with a BSN as well. Yeah, we did like simulations together, global pandemic simulation, poverty simulations together. So, we know each other. So, yeah, it's gonna be like a day of celebration tomorrow. Anyway, maybe I'll talk about that tomorrow. When you watch tomorrow's show. So yeah, so check back tomorrow, and I hope you will be well and that your family will be well. And I will continue to provide you with the show and information that you need to survive COVID-19. So yeah, definitely check back tomorrow. So I hope you'll be well and your family will be well. And I'll look forward to seeing you tomorrow. Bye.